Recent data and public sentiment suggest a discrepancy between the official portrayal of China's economy by the Chinese Communist Party and the actual economic experiences of many Chinese citizens. This divergence in perception appears to be intensifying. Amid what some are calling the most severe economic downturn in decades, there is a rising tide of concern, reflected in growing unemployment rates and an increasing number of citizens grappling with challenges like potential job losses, reduced income, and significant mortgage pressures. Societal sentiment in China has reached a critical juncture, with public confidence in the Xi Jinping administration crumbling. Akin to the spread of a contagion, some scholars believe that China is on the eve of a significant transformation. According to a report by Nikkei Asia on August 28th, there has been a surge in workers' strikes and protests in China. Based on statistics from the non-governmental organization, China Labor Bulletin, 830 strikes and protests were recorded in 2022, and in the first half of 2023 alone, there were 741 incidents. On August 27, all workers of the China Railway Beijing Group gathered at the entrance of the railway to protest. They loudly chanted, "Give us our wages," and questioned why are the salaries of the workers of China Railway Beijing Group lower than those of the China Railway Shanghai Group? Where has the money gone? Videos circulating online show that on August 16, bus drivers from the Tai'an City public transport company in Shandong province went on strike, protesting that their wages had been withheld for nearly 5 months. It's not just the workers going on strike. Delivery drivers are also fighting back. On August 10, at the Jingtan Property Plaza in Chenzhou, Jiangsu, a delivery man parked his electric bike in the plaza. However, the plaza security locked his bike. This incident sparked a collective protest by delivery men. Numerous delivery drivers breached the barricades and confronted the security. Netizens commented, "The delivery community is like the modern-day beggars' gang. They have organized themselves and are not to be trifled with." Ordinary citizens have remarked that China is a tinderbox awaiting a flame. Especially during the 3 years of the pandemic, Xi Jinping's policies have adversely affected ordinary citizens, causing widespread public discontent. On October 13, 2022, a middle-aged man named Peng Daizhou, disregarding his own safety, stood on the Xitong Bridge in Beijing in protest. He displayed banners that read, "We want food, not PCR test. We want freedom, not lockdowns. Call for dignity, not lies. We want reform, not cultural revolution. We want ballots, not leaders. We want to be citizens, not slaves." On the 26th of November 2022, a tragic fire in Urumqi, exacerbated by stringent pandemic control measures, sparked a nationwide white paper protest against extreme zero-COVID policies. This movement saw citizens from various cities and students from numerous universities participating, with some openly calling for the downfall of Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. On the 7th of December 2022, a sudden shift in pandemic policies led to a devastating outbreak, which, coupled with other crises, resulted in unprecedented public and official resentment. 2023 has been continual public protests. Citizens have vented their frustration during the New Year's fireworks. Then the flooding event in the late July and early August, where the government unannounced release of floodwaters to areas like Zhouzhou to protect Beijing and ghost city Xiong'an, had resulted in extreme dissatisfaction in the people, with continued protests since August this year. The common people in China can actually feel the stark economic downturn in China, but the Chinese Communist Party's narrative doesn't reflect this decline. The economic reality experienced by many Chinese people sharply contrasts with the official portrayal, and this cognitive dissonance continues to widen.
I had a video call with my mother tonight, and my main concern was what industry I could enter after losing my job and what kind of job I could do. However, after speaking with her, I felt completely shattered. I'm not only anxious about my job prospects, but I also fear this company might collapse. I don't understand why my parents reacted so intensely when they learned I'd soon be unemployed. They seemed to think the world was ending, that I couldn't survive here anymore, that I'd immediately starve to death in Chengdu. I regret telling them about my impending unemployment. I'm 32, single, and childless. I've been laid off and have been job hunting for over a month without any companies responding. I've lived in Beijing for many years and I'm unwilling to leave, but I worry that even if I find a job, I might face unemployment again. What should I do?
Not only are young people joking online about their hard days and adopting a lying flat attitude, but the older generation, with both elders and children to care for, is facing a bigger crisis. Finding a job after 35 is becoming increasingly difficult, let alone pursuing a better quality of life or spending aggressively.
I've been unemployed for a year. Many ask how I manage it. Today I had no food at home, so I decided to go out for ramen. There's a discount on Wednesdays, 8 yuan reduced to 4 yuan when paying with Union Pay. I'm trying to save money and life is genuinely tough. I used to earn 30,000 yuan a month in Hangzhou and could eat whatever I wanted. Now, after a year of unemployment, I count the days I can eat ramen. This is my daily life and it's quite tragic. Never resign. Finding another job is too hard. The most significant pressure of middle-age unemployment. Isn't it the continuously accruing bills, or supporting a family, or paying for mortgages, car loans, and children's tuition? Isn't it the closed doors to re-employment?
Once a crisis of confidence arises in society, consumers hesitate to spend, businesses avoid investing, and potential entrepreneurs hesitate to start. The vitality of the entire economic sector diminishes. This crisis of confidence and economic downturn become a vicious cycle. People can't find jobs and businesses close because consumers aren't spending. China's economy is plummeting, with many stores, even in the capital, Beijing, shutting down. A merchant in Beijing's Korean district shopping center recently stated, "Carrefour is done. The whole of Beijing is like this. Carrefour closed early this year and many other businesses have left the mall." A rental agent at the mall added, "Normally we could accommodate 60,000 people. Now the occupancy rate of this 3 building is only 70%. A nearby trader mentioned, even though the rent has dropped by more than half, 30 to 40% of the units remain vacant. China's most significant financial city, Shanghai, is also in decline, losing its vitality.
This is Fengsheng Li, and it doesn't feel like Shanghai anymore. This is Wujiang Road, but not the Wujiang Road of the past. It feels different. I feel like each shop is barely surviving. Now, Wujiang Road relies on smaller storefronts. Brands like Happy Lemon, Lindley, Starbucks, and Lucky Coffee aren't enough to maintain the reputation of Wujiang Road as a gourmet street. Is Yang's dumpling still the same as before? It seems to me that all the bustling streets of Shanghai are gone.
Shanghai Wuyue Square is riddled with shut-down stores, exuding an aura of desolation.
Today is the weekend. The entire mall is almost deserted. Look at these shops. None of them are rented out. All are closed. The upper levels are nearly vacant. The original intention of this commercial street was to boost local property prices. Although property prices rose, the commercial street is almost in a state of abandonment. On the ground floor, only a few stores remain open with extremely low foot traffic. Most of the shops on the upper levels are shut.
In Shenzhen's biggest electronic market, Huaqiangbei Commercial Street, empty storefronts are everywhere, a stark contrast to its bustling past.
Today, we're at Huaqiangbei Commercial Street. There are noticeably fewer people, even though it's the weekend. It's said that many shops here have closed down. The place, once renowned for cosmetics and electronics, seems deserted. This showcases the challenges faced by brick-and-mortar businesses. It's hard to believe that Huaqiangbei, once bustling, is now filled with empty shops. It used to be so crowded here. Most shops are closed, and the few that remain open hardly have any business.
But in the face of solid evidence, China's state media insists that the Western politicians and medias are waging an information war and are exaggerating China's economic issues. Spokesman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Wang Wenbing, stated on August 16 that they will eventually face the repercussions of their actions. Yet, when reality proves to be less than ideal, the tactic is to obscure it. An example is China's decision in August to cease the publication of youth unemployment rates, which was widely ridiculed online. Netizens sarcastically commented that the government had finally found a solution to unemployment. Under the stringent censorship, discrepancies between China's official narrative and real-life situations are not new. But now, from the affluent elites to factory workers, the growing public pessimism makes this contrast especially glaring. Recent comments expressing skepticism or direct criticism of the economic outlook have managed to evade censorship, perhaps because they have become overwhelmingly common. Professor Ji-Woo Cheng from the University of Hong Kong observed that this unease is persuasive in China, spanning all sectors. This explains why the Chinese government constantly uses state media and other tools to project positive messages, emphasizing the widening gap between the perceptions of top leaders and ordinary citizens. The Chinese Communist Party approach has centered power with the wealth of the common people siphoned off, preventing the establishment of a consumer market. The party's policies impoverish the people, enriching the government and consolidating its centralized power. Since Xi Jinping's ascent to power a decade ago, his focus has been on consolidating power, especially after the 20th National Congress, whether it's the early China Dream or recent campaigns against private enterprises in favor of common prosperity, or the recent promotion of Chinese-style modernization. The common thread seems to be misleading and deceiving the populace. But as people become impoverished, society's ability to create wealth diminishes and the government's revenue from taxes decline. If the populace become too poor or survive, it may rebel. On August 28th, Voice of America published an article by Deng Yuan, a Chinese political scholar residing in the United States. He pointed out that societal sentiment can be viewed as the people's assessment of the government. Currently, China's societal sentiment is in a negative state, reflecting the profound disappointment and dissatisfaction of the people towards the CCP. From the working class to the middle class, from those outside the CCP to insiders, from intellectuals to entrepreneurs, from ordinary civil servants to mid and higher level officials, a prevailing sentiment is anxiety. Many see no prospect for their futures, nor hope for the country. This sense of hopelessness is not limited to the common people. For officials, they face incessant political education, loyalty tests to Xi Jinping, and pressures from anti-corruption campaigns. Entrepreneurs grapple with their lack of promising investment opportunities and threats of bankruptcy. For intellectuals, there is a bitter reality of being silenced. People are tired of the official propaganda and ideology. Those who want to change their fate either consider immigration or illegal immigration. Following the lifting of pandemic restrictions, large numbers of people entered the United States through various channels, reaching a record high since the economic reform began. Those not keen on changing their fate either are forced into or consciously choose a lifestyle of intense competition or detachment. If such sentiment persists for several years and surpasses the psychological threshold of endurance, a minor unpredictable event could potentially trigger a systemic social crisis. This could lead to a significant eruption of societal sentiment, and transformation would inevitably follow. Recently, veteran media personality Yan Chen-o wrote on Facebook, analyzing that the stability of a regime depends on the balance of variable between the government and the people. When the nation is strong, resistance from the populace is relatively weak because the government has the resources to appease public grievances with money. Conversely, when national power is weakened and resources are stretched thin, if the government cannot meet the demands of people, widespread public resentment will arise, potentially brewing a social crisis. The strength of a nation and public discontent act as variables. Their interaction generates a combined force, which is a powerful momentum driving towards the potential collapse of the CCP. As for when the CCP might fall, Yan Chen-o says this evolutionary process takes time. It could be as short as 5 years or as long as 10 years. Unpredictable factors such as natural disasters or wars are also in play, so it's impossible to pinpoint an exact timeline. Once a critical threshold is reached, the opportunity will suddenly arise, and as history has shown, the other shoe will drop.